And I think that mindset of fall in love with their problem and that move, we can talk about ourselves as long as we put it within the framework of their priorities and we show them what the huge advantage is going to be using us, that "so you can" phrase, that can turn an accolade into a really positive experience for people. And they want to hire you, and they've got that.
And now the man you've been waiting for. He is the real thriller in Manila. The undisputed, undefeated, reigning, defending, pound for pound, heavyweight John, the sales machine, Rankins.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, today's guest is the mastermind behind transforming global organizations into growth machines. As founder and CEO of Bunnell Idea Group, BIG, he has massively influenced business development for tens of thousands of professionals worldwide through his game-changing Grow Big methodology. He is the best-selling author of Give to Grow and the Snowball System, books that have redefined relationship-driven sales. As the host of the Real Relationship, Real Revenue podcast, he continues to shape industry leaders. His clients include the world's most prestigious service organization, and he helps them make business development extraordinary. Please welcome him to the show, Mo Bunnell.
Hey, John, thanks. I'm so excited because I think you and I can complete each other's sentences. And I think the key is that relationships are paramount to both of us, but deepening relationships in a way that actually converts to business. That's the magic. I can't wait to dig into it with you because I know we feel the same thing.
I do. To me, sales has always been a service. How can I help someone? And, I've trained tens of thousands of salespeople all over the globe, literally from the United States, the UK, India, Indonesia, Philippines, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, all over the world. And the best salespeople, to me, are the ones that not only can listen, but have empathy and really are there to help others. So that's what resonated with me to get you on the podcast, especially the Give to Grow essence of it and how you've helped so many service organizations. It's funny because a lot of the times I hear people say, well, I'm not a salesman. I can't sell. To me, it's always you've got issues about helping people or you've got internal issues about rejection because it's not about you. It was never about you. Do you like people? Well, yeah. Do you like helping people? Yeah. You might discover you could be an amazing individual at sales as long as you come from the place and space to help people. So tell me, how you've been in this gig 30 years and it's all at the B2B level. How did you get into sales, business development? Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, John, I had almost like a cataclysmic shift in my life, my career. When I was in my late 20s, I started my career being an actuary. And do you know what an actuary is before I go further?
No idea, actually.
a lot of people don't. An actuary is like an applied statistician. When I went through the series of exams to become a licensed actuary in the US, it took about 10 years to pass all these exams. 24 exams, pass rate was about a third, fail rate 2/3. And I got to the other side of it in the consulting firm I was with, because they called me an actuary with a personality, sort of funny. They said, you should shift to this business development role. And in one weekend, John, I went from like an inch wide and a mile deep, green visor statistician, back to the room, running the numbers. That was my actuarial job. In 1 week, I went from that to like an inch and a mile wide, where I was asked to lead pursuit of all our services, hundreds of them, to some of our largest prospects and largest clients. I went to my boss and asked for a manual on business development, and he sort of chuckled at me. He laughed. There's no manual, treat the client right. So, John, I was petrified. I thought I made a horrible mistake. So I started cobbling together what worked. I started digging in to scientific studies of how relationships are formed. Why does somebody buy from one person, not another? How do we hack our own habits to stay on top of things and not get distracted? All of that work started to put together a system. And just within a few years, I was managing some of our largest clients worldwide and having success and being asked to talk about, like, how did you do it internally? And that's when I fell in love with not just business development, I love, but also teaching others. And then I left that firm as a senior partner about 20 years ago, like you said. And now we've trained like 60,000 people in this relationship focused business development system called Grow Big.
Yeah, and I want to dive deeper into that. I've literally been in the space of recruiting, training, and retaining and developing salespeople for 30 years. And it's not easy. It's the highest turnover occupation in the world, especially field sales agents specifically, outside of the B2B space and inside the B2B space where they're out in the field. What have you done to recruit, train, and retain great business development managers, and what systems have you created to do exactly that?
John, it's such a great question. It really boils down to two things: mindset and moves. The mindset you've actually already hit on. Selling or business development isn't something you do to someone, it's something you do for someone. And we, to your point before, we've got to really orient ourselves on being helpful, but in a way that strategically could help us. So that's our mindset. We're going to invest in the highest value prospects. For somebody that we could work with for 10 years, we're going to invest a lot of time. For somebody that maybe we could do something for, but it's small, we're going to invest less time. We're going to strategically align our investments to where the longest term payoff is. And what a lot of salespeople do is focused on getting the deal. And that's what's ever in front of you right now. What really wins is the mindset of long-term relationship building. So that's mindset. When we think about moves, that's a whole another conversation. We need like a dozen podcasts to cover all those. But it's knowing things like psychological principles like the IKEA Effect, studied by Michael Norton out of Harvard. People buy into what they help create. So a common move, I send you a proposal. That's a horrible idea. It's so easy for that person to say yes, and you don't know if they're serious or not. What we want to do is engage them in crafting the proposal. If they bite on that, if they spend a little time with you, do you like this? Do you like that? We could do it this way, this way. Here's my recommendation. How's that sound? If they make little tweaks in the proposal development, the IKEA Effect says people buy into what they help create. And because they've worked at it, they're going to love it. So once we think about moves, there's over 250 scientific studies that are in all of our systems. That's one, but we need to know, like, what is the scientific way that will actually deepen a relationship and result in the highest chance of probability of a win, and do that over and over and over and over again. So we need the right mindset. We need the right move.
Yeah, and I love how you make them the hero of the story.
Yes.
It's all about them and it's not about you. Every time I train a group of individuals, or if I'm involved with helping companies improve their sales, the first thing I do is I go straight to the room and I write on a board, or I use the iPad and I write, nobody cares, first of all. And I'm like, digest that. And then I write, it's not about you.
I love it.
Nobody cares about your service. Nobody cares how long you've been in business. They don't care. It's all about them. And eventually it's going to be all about the economic impact that you're having on that business, because otherwise they're going to get axed for making a decision. I just recently made a decision about sending out proposals because I absolutely think it's, a complete, utter waste of time if you haven't sat with the client and found out what is it that's going to make the biggest impact and that's going to be sustainable and scalable. Because otherwise, there's all kinds of change problems. There's all kinds of different disruptions in the business, or there's the doubters. Is this going to work? They're the X factors, right? So I love the approach you take. And you loved when I said, win in service, never nervous. That's just, that's from me speaking on stages around the world. And in actuality, having, gotten berated like the first minute out in Japan in front of a group of CEOs, I started to get berated by the head of Sony. And he was just ripping into me like, why should I listen to you? You know, you look like one of my average salespeople. And I'm like, well, that's 100% up to you. I'm here to serve, and there's nobody in this room that's going to be able to teach you anything if you're not open to it. But I'm here in service to tell you a little story of how I've built over 1,000 people in Southeast Asia that consistently do sales without a salary. So if you're open, I'm sure if you're a leader of an organization, you can learn from something from me. But if you're closed, there's nobody here that's going to be able to help you. So I went from getting berated, and I was sweating bricks, dude. This is the first time I spoke internationally in front of a group of people that paid to be there. And then I got a standing ovation. So 1 minute in, getting berated by the head of Sony. And then within 3 minutes, he sat down. Everybody else stood up and gave me a standing ovation in Japan. I walked off stage and I said, no more will I ever go on stage and be nervous again. It's not about me. When in service, never nervous. And so this actuary work that you did for 10 years, I literally explained to clients and my team that if you want success to be automatic, you got to be scientific. If you want your success to be automatic, be scientific about your mindset, your skills, and eventually your habits, because you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits, right? So I love that. But what does it mean when because I went into the front of the room, I was teaching an organization, and I went around the room and said, so your business development managers, what does that mean to you? And I went through like 5 or 6 of them. That one stands up and says, well, I bring more business to our company. Another one says, well, I increase the revenue of every deal. And it was all about them. And I'm like, what does the title say? It says business development manager. That's what it reads. And you guys are only talking about yourselves.
Yeah.
And do you think that's a common denominator of why your sales are so low? Because they're just in awe, because it was all about them. I'm like, it's not about you. Now we don't even send proposals out without an executive summary of the problem in their businesses that they quoted, a solution, the economic impact, the value proposition, and a timeline, and who's it going to affect from finance, operations. Like, what is the impact I don't want nobody looking at a bunch of numbers because they mean nothing until they know the value of what they're getting. And it's just a different conversation. You walk in a boardroom, you sit down, you read the room. They ask you to do your introduction again or show us a demo again. No, we don't do that. We go over what we talked about. I have someone express what was it that they discovered. And then we let them know we prepared an executive summary for you to show you the value, to fill in the blanks about what were your problems, your challenges, and what was driving your president absolutely insane. No visibility in sales, 140 encoders costing you $28 million a year. We're going to eliminate all that. You're going to have real-time data, real visibility. Instead of it being 20 days for you to see the numbers from 8 different ERP systems because they sell 8 different car brands, we're going to give you a single source of truth, real time. That's what business development means to me. What does it mean to you? And where do you think companies get it wrong, or individuals?
You hit it on something, John, that's one of the most important things people get wrong. Our brains are wired to keep us safe. We're wired to make everything about us. And so if I go back to that mindset and move idea, one of the chapters that's in the book, Give to Grow, it's resonated with you. One of the chapters is called Fall in Love with Their Problem. And that's the mindset we want to have. And that's what you were talking about when you're saying writing that executive summary. It was clear in your ways you were talking. You're playing back their priorities. And this is a key thing I don't want the audience to miss about what you said. You're playing back their priorities in their words. Not your words, not what can come across as jargon, but you're playing back what you heard from them about their priorities. That's huge. When we think about a move associated with that, and you could incorporate this, and anybody in listening would put in their proposals. There's some research by a woman named Cynthia Kreider, and I love her research. She found that when somebody talks about their own accolades, it's not only flat to the decision maker, it's a negative. It comes across as bragging. But all you have to do, we solve that. This next part's our work in the field. If you just talk about your accolade and then add the words "so we can" or "so you can," and now you talk about what they'll get out of it, that actually turns the accolade into a positive because you're focusing on their priorities and their words, not your accolades. So, your software is some of the best in the world. You could be able to say, we work with X% of the industry, or we get your real-time data from 28 days down to real time or whatever. That's important for you, decision maker, so that you can, and then you'd insert whatever they already said is a big priority of theirs, strategic insights, whatever. And I think that mindset of fall in love with their problem and that move of we can talk about ourselves as long as we put it within the framework of their priorities and we show them what the huge advantage is going to be using us, that "so you can" phrase, that can turn an accolade into a really positive experience for people, and they want to hire you, and they've got that.
Yeah, I love the simplicity of "so you can."
So easy. Yeah.
Yeah, because business is simple. People complicate it. And I find in my experience, a lot of the times, because, some people learn on Wall Street, some people, learn as an academic, and they put, they invest in their education. And I admire that too. But I learned everything from the street, literally knocking on doors and putting myself out there when it was uncomfortable, especially early on when I didn't have that academic education. But whenever I was asked to jump in, whenever I was asked to go educate people on how I built thousands of people in direct selling and what was my framework or my methodology, I always say, as long as you have the right psychology, mindset, methodology, moves into technology, automation, and elimination of nonsense.
I like that.
So psychology, methodology built into technology, that defines the sales machine and what you need to grow an organization. And it just evolved as I learned, because I'm always open to learning. And I'm still learning. Like, I just came up with that from studying different individuals around the world. And, most of them have been on the podcast. I've really come to understand, just keep it simple and make them the hero of the story. My first time signing my first client, that's an enterprise level client. It's not huge, but it's a couple $100,000 of licensing and implementation. Right out the gate, I went through several different meetings, right? Several different stakeholders from finance, sales, marketing. Like, we just had to jump through the hoops to projects, because projects is different than doing the retail sales. And this was a big manufacturing distribution company. Then we got to the boardroom, made the sale to the CEO. He's like, "You know what? Based on everything you said," which was everything his team said, and giving him an executive summary, we're in. Only to find out now we had to go through and jump through all of the different hoops in their procurement process to become a certified vendor for them, SEC documents, financial statements, where I ate dinner at night, who I hung out with. I'm like, this is insane. These are all X factors that I was not even prepared for. But in the car going to the meeting with procurement, because this was at the time the biggest contract we were about to sign for the software company, I literally let my account executive and my corporate affairs know, look, I've padded this proposal because I was prepared for them asking for a discount. Now, procurement, their entire job is to get discounts and vest us. So just so you know, the goal today is to make whoever's in charge of procurement the hero of the story. So anyway, it ended up only being 5 because I talked about man hours, manpower, and I don't want to reduce the quality of the implementation. So I'm fine with figuring out how we can save you something. I appreciate your role and everything. My only concern is if we lower the amount of manpower and man days, the quality of the implementation and the timeline won't be met. And, this has all been strategically thought out based on every mandate to implement to make your timeline. Left with the deal, only gave up 5%, but I made him the hero of the story. And I find that happens so much more often than not. Yesterday, we were talking to $1 billion company. We're in the boardroom with some great people, and they're really vested into this group, and they really want the best. And we walked them through what we do, and then they told us about all their other problems. And we're like, well, in essence, you only asked us to give you a proposal and a solution for these two problems. If we open up the system, you can see the entire smart framework. We can handle all this. And they're like, well, you didn't quote us on that. And you didn't tell us about the app. And I'm like, you know what? That's on us. We didn't do a good enough discovery to understand all of your issues. What else can we solve for you? And engagement, everybody opened up and they understand it. I made it my bad, not their IT, not my discovery team. In essence, we screwed up the discovery. We didn't know you had all these additional problems. And bottom line is it turned into a much richer, deeper discussion of how we can help. And I find that's what business development really is, to simplify it so they can be empowered. Yeah. So what do you think is a common denominator, a cost? Because you've trained 50,000 plus organizations around the world. What do you think is a common denominator most companies get wrong?
Well, that's a great question. Well, let me first talk with what are the stakes, and then I'll get to what people do wrong. The stakes are high here. What's interesting about sales or business development is the difference between the average performer and a great performer. We've actually asked our clients this. The most common answer we get back when we said, look at the numbers, show us the difference between your average performer, not the low, the average, and your top. By far, the most common answer we get back is 10x. So stakes are really high to get this right. We're not talking about you can improve 20%. We're talking about 10 times between the average and the best. So what are they doing differently? The number one thing best do differently, let's call them top performers versus average, is, to your point before, they put the client at the center. They make them the hero and all the things that we've been talking about. The trick is to do that in everything. So I'll give you a simple example. When people are winning work, a lot of times they want to write a big, huge proposal and send it to somebody and try to get a meeting. The best outbound emails are 50 words or less. That's what fits on one Outlook screen on a phone. You want the person to be able to read it, get the idea, say, sounds great, copy to assistant. That's it. Another example is when people give big pitches. So I try to give a real simple example. Now let's give a complicated one. Like you were talking about, say you get 8 people in the room, you're in the boardroom, it's high stakes. Everybody thinks that they got to perform perfectly to win. Well, what most people do is they plan about talking the whole time. Okay, you're going to cover slides 1 through 3 in the opening. You're going to cover 4 through 8. And basically what we're training to do is talk. I want people training to drive engagement in that meeting. Fall in love with the problem. Just start rolling up your sleeve and say, hey, we've got a whole deck over here and we can cover all our qualifications, all that. You probably already know what those are from our website. Let us give you our recommendation on how we'd solve this exact problem. And we'd love to get your reaction because you know things about your culture we would never know. You know what the timelines are, things like that. But together we can create the perfect solution. Let's start with our suggested approach. And you drive conversation. So the thread behind those two examples, one tiniest little thing in an email, make it short, and about that something high stakes is focusing on them, focusing on engagement versus us talking, focusing on the benefits to them versus our accolades. So you can't. It's those types of things that separate the average from the top.
Yeah, and specifically, I love what you're putting down. I'm picking up what you're putting down because in actuality, even in the car going to this $1 billion group, I prepared the people to introduce the people who are going to be presenting because I used the laws of persuasion by Richard Cialdini. I don't want to make this about us, but when they asked us to start the presentation, then what's going to happen is I'm going to introduce you guys and your background, because that'll allow you to become the authority, and they'll listen so much more. But then authority, then I want you to, as corporate affairs, I want you to introduce Ed and his background, and not about his accolades, but about how he's helped companies save 4 million a year, save 8 million a year, how he's helped others. And initially I got some pushback. The pushback was, well, why do I have to do it like that? Or why do I need to introduce if you're going to introduce? And I said, it's just so much more influential when you introduce somebody and how they've helped others to establish them as an authority. So it's not about the accolades for him, but it's accolades for them to have a different level of respect and trust to understand that he's helped others. And more I find that the less you talk, the better. And the quality of the conversations is always the quality of the questions you're asking. And we did get it wrong as far as the discovery, because we actually nailed the initial problems and solutions and the economic impact we could make with the business. But when we got the VP in there, she started talking about, yes, I agree. The CEO doesn't have visibility in the field. And how can you guys show us that? And we said, well, most people have business intelligence. You got Microsoft BI, and that's a nice visibility tool, but you got no ingestion engine, can take all of this complicated information from different file formats, different systems. And we're just like that travel adapter. You can plug it in anywhere. We can plug your stuff in from every single source, and out comes the single source of truth. So it's one thing to have these visibility tools, but they cannot make sense of the ingestion. That's what we do. And that's business intelligence for the C-suite. Do you have field intelligence? And people are like deer in the headlights. Well, what do you mean? Do you have visibility on what your people are doing every day in the field? Because that's what we do. Like, you can literally push a button, you know, time in, you know, time out. Even if they're offline, there's no internet or online, how long they were in a store, what did they sell in the store, what's the on-shelf availability of everything, or in your showroom. Like, this is just a different ball game. And the discovery is key to falling in love with their problem. That's all about the initial relationship and making the initial sale. But let's talk about the relationships to revenue and the frameworks that you've created. Because if you want true wealth, I always have been a believer in the fact that if you want to live successfully, be a blessing to others. And that's my goal, is just to be a blessing to others every day of my life. Give and you shall receive. And this is all from the Bible. And it's what it is. Amen and amen. The goal for me, though, is to help others get elevated and have long-term relationships, because that, to me, is how you go from being successful to being wealthy, is relationships. And you built frameworks around that. Can you dive into that? And how did you discover that essentially was the key to sustainable, scalable success for organizations?
Yeah. Well, I want to go back and give one little tip on something that you stood next to a second ago, and then I'll come back for relationships. It's a super fast tip, but and all this stuff is in the book, Gift to Grow, but this one's so powerful and so easy to implement, I can't skip over it. When sharing a draft proposal with somebody, let's say we fall in love with their problem, we've got their priorities in their words, we've reflected that back. I love the construct you gave before. I hope everybody picked that up. It's helpful to put a percentage in front of it and say 60% draft proposal or 80% right draft proposal, something like that. And by putting a percentage in front of it, the reader, the decision maker, when they get it, by having a number, they think, oh, I've got to take it from 80 to 20. They need my help, or from 90 to 100 or whatever. And it just signals draft suggested approach so much better than without a number. We found it incredibly helpful. So let's go to relationships. The most important thing somebody can do by far is write their most important relationships down. What does that mean? For most salespeople, most business developers, most account execs, most of their revenue over the next 3 to 5 years is going to be usually driven between 10 and 20 people. Probably not 200. These people might be direct buyers. They might be what we call strategic partners, people that give referrals more than buy themselves. Some people are both. And the first thing somebody wants to do is write down those names. The mistake everybody will typically make is called status quo bias. And it means that we tend to want to do in the future what we've done in the past. So what most people do is write down the names of the people they've been spending time with over the last month or so. We don't want to do that. You want to think very strategically about, if I just crush on these relationships, this list I'm going to write over the next 3 to 5 years, all these people are going to become effectively raving fans of mine. I'm going to add so much value in their life that they can't help but run around and talk to other people about it. And once we've got that list made, we might not even know some of the people on it. It might be, we might not even know the name of the person, chairman of the board of XYZ Corp, where we've done a bunch of work at, something like that. We want to write down the people we want to focus on. And then every month we want to add value in some way outside of what they're expecting from us. Drip, 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 just adding value over time. Sometimes it's taking them to sporting events. Sometimes it'll be sending them a thought piece. Sometimes it'll be doing a workshop at no charge just to help them move something forward. So they can be small, but if we just keep proactively investing in those most important people, you almost can't help but succeed. John, I think you're a big meeting today, obviously a big relationship guy. What do you think of that? How would you change it? How would you make it your own? What do you think about it as it applies to the audience?
Hey, folks, if you're enjoying this episode and you're picking up what I'm putting down and what the guests are actually putting out there, do me a favor, like and comment what you liked about the episode, or even comment what would you like to hear? What topics would you like to hear in the future? Because believe me, it matters. I read absolutely every single one of them, and I want to bring you more and more value to help companies scale so that we can grow this podcast to make a bigger difference. Now let's get back to the show. I'm a big fan of Giftology, and I've read the book, and I understand the methodology and the psychology behind it. This is also a Richard Cialdini thing, the law of reciprocity.
Likability. Yep. Reciprocity. Yeah. Both of you're kicking in likability and reciprocity by doing this. Yeah.
For me, I'm a firm believer in earning and doing the work to earn. So I was taught by my grandfather at a very young age to go out in the shop, and we would rebuild bicycles and resell them, and very modest upbringing. And I absolutely loved, I didn't have a father, so my grandfather was there for me, and, used to walk in the room, and there was 4 of us sleeping on the floor in a 2-bedroom house out in the country, and he'd walk in, and I didn't know why. He would just say, "John T., it's time." So my older brother didn't go out, my younger brother, my sister, and he'd take me out in the shop, and he would show me how to create and how to get value and add value. And we could take junk and make it beautiful, literally. And so my whole psychology is service and helping and earning. And I'm fine with earning as long as I earned it. It's very important to me to help and earn my way. So when I heard and read The Laws of Influence and Persuasion by Richard Cialdini, and then eventually I, became aware of Giftology, and now I'm aware of your work, Give to Get, right? Essentially. And it all goes back to, when I was, in church at 11 years old, give and you shall receive. Giftology is a huge thing for me to open doors and to your mindset of nurture, because I'm like, guys, everything that I know, I want to put in a playbook. And whatever situation, when we do discovery with an individual that's in an organization that's actually struggling, I want you to email them a playbook, a simple playbook with an outline of how, whether they work with us or not, they can solve their problem. And
I love this, John.
Or I want a list of 100 different case studies, and you can divide them up into 10 different industries of what people have done to 10x that business. Now, I didn't use those words 10x, but to transform. I like saying transform. My methodology My psychology is always be in service, never nervous, solve their problems. That will create the economic impact they need, and then make sure they're satisfied, the relationship part of that, and you'll grow. That's really from Zig Ziglar. Not I've just adopted and embodied it in my psychology because to me, that's what's truly going to make a difference. And then the methodology is give, and yes, be strategic, because if you're not relevant and you're talking about how you've created success or given case studies outside of their industry, they're always going to doubt. And when in doubt, they're out. They're not going to believe that it's relevant to them. So giftology is huge for me. Giving, always giving. You know, I used to define my life purpose as to love, contribute, lead, and empower myself and others. That's a lot to say. Now I realize the purpose of my life is to be a blessing to others. And to be a blessing is to give. And it's not to get. That's the purpose of my life. So how can I show up and be grateful for my blessings every day and be a blessing to others? And that's sales. That's how I see sales. That's how I see business development. That's how I see account executives. I mean, when I first got into this really deep, I've been doing this for 5 years now, but I only pivoted into running it and managing it 3 years ago after hiring a lot of different individuals that were false prophets. And they led me down roads that you don't want to go on. They're dark and scary. And at the end, it's not a happy ending. It's not. They don't bring revenue. They're toxic. They don't know how to love people. They don't know how to empower people. It's all about them and their egos. And so I was kind of like I used my direct sales wealth and how I've helped thousands of people all over the world. And I bootstrapped this thing. Thought, well, don't be the blocker, John. Hire revenue ops. Hire these legendary salespeople. It didn't work. So I had to jump in. I didn't know what an ICP was, right? I didn't know what go-to-market strategy was. All I knew was I know how to help people build and scale, increase sales, drive performance, and retain their customers and reduce costs. I know this. But I was listening to all the jargon, like you said. So my psychology got lost in jargon and my belief that these people probably know what they're doing more than me because they're academics. They've been in the space. And what I found out is it was all about them. It wasn't about giving. And I had to move forward and move on from those individuals and just go back to what I know, which is service and helping people. So that's my take on it. I know that's long-winded, but that's where I'm at with it. And I grow and learn every day. Like I'm learning from you right now. The nurturing is validation that it works because you've worked with 50,000 people. Countless organizations. You've wrote books on it that validates that I'm on the right track. And that's refreshing because a confused mind doesn't buy, but more so than that, a confused mind doesn't act. So if you're a business development manager out there, if you're a sales leader out there, if you're a CEO out there, yesterday, Christine, the VP of the group I will not tell you, she's like, I don't get it. And I'm like, we're in trouble because a confused mind and the authority in this room, she understands the first two problems and how our system can pay for itself. Those are my words. So in the absence of value, it always comes down to price, which means you did not establish your value. Shame on you. You did not fix their problem. And it's about you and a number. So if they ask you, so at the end of the meeting, she goes, okay, I don't get it. I don't get what we're buying here. You showed me a field, intelligence app. You showed me an entire operational framework and I dig it. But now why is it not in the proposal? Initially, we did a good enough discovery. We just found out in the room today that you have more problems. You have more challenges. So I owned it for my team. And that's just how I see the entire psychology and methodology. Our technology automates, eliminates, and escalates with gamification the mindset of the individuals using the system. And that's all.
Yeah. And John, I love how you're teeing all that up. And I think that the headline is just moved through that's been through everything we talked about today is make everything about them. Fall in love with their problem, learn their priorities and their words, play it back with a draft proposal, maybe even with a percentage that says, and you say clearly, like, we know our solution really well. We've reflected back what we believe the issues to be, but this is a suggested approach. It's probably the only way we could get it, as far as we get, is 80% right. We need your feedback to make it perfect. And then getting into those dialogues to iterate from there, pull through the IKEA effect, people buy into what they help create. And then the decision makers are dragging you across the goal line. And that's where you ask a couple questions along the way of like, what's the difference between, what do people get wrong? I framed it like, what's the difference between average and top performer? That top performer is the person that does all those things all the way across the goal line, making it about them and getting their buy-in every step of the way. That's what works incredibly well. And you're doing it. It's obviously you're doing it too.
Well, I'm in it, and I love it because I'm like a kid in a candy store. I get to help people. Number one, I get to solve problems, so I get to put together that puzzle. So that's gonna definitely work for me. And I'm doing all of that to figure out what works, to help my team know what works, to help organizations to know what works, so that everybody wins. Because I know everybody can win. That's a fact. This isn't the NFL. There has to be a winner and a loser. This is business where everyone can win. I love to point out to every single client we have at the end when they say, okay, all right, we've seen enough. We see the value, everything, but what are we looking at? What's it going to cost? I love saying, I'm glad you asked, because actually in that executive summary, we can show you how the system pays for itself. It actually, in what you're going to save and in the increase in sales, the system pays for itself. So let's look at that economic impact, and line by line, let's, make sure that everything here is relevant to you so that you know the value you're getting. And to me, that eliminates the risk. That's what Alex Hermosi, he's a great marketer out there. He says, make it the offer so good they would feel stupid saying no. Now, I don't like that terminology of stupid, but you feel stupid if you said no. That's what I call an irresistible offer, where you can eliminate all the risk and make it all about them, their idea, and the system pays for itself. Then you would be the only obvious choice to move forward. Even if there's competition, they're not doing it like that. They cannot be, especially when it's authentically us as a team who have done the work for them to make their life easier and not about us. But you mentioned something, because I'm all about scaling and making a difference and being a blessing, whether it's to my people, to my family, to organizations. The fact that those top 10% or top 20% do 10x a lot of the times of the other individuals. And right now, my mandate to our tech team is I want to use AI to identify just a whole community of agents within our system, the best practices of those top 10%, extract them, right? And that becomes the gold standard. People call them best practices, but that's really the gold standard. So we have AI note taker, we have AI agents that evaluate every single call, every single conversation. What is the psychology, the methodology, the moves, like you call them, the moves, the mindset and the moves. Now, in order for an organization to 10x, they need to raise the waterline so that all the ships rise, all those salespeople rise. Because the biggest challenge I find in organizations is finding rock star salesmen that can 10x, not easily duplicatable, replicatable. And for the most part, it's because you don't identify what's their gold standard? What are their best practices? What are they doing differently? Because if you want your success to be automatic, you need to be scientific. You can extract what they're doing. What is the process? And what is the sequence of the process? And let the AI extract that. So I have next level sales. So what is next level sales? And the book will come out, is taking your clients from where they're at to the next level. And what does that next level look like? but you got to do it step by step and you got to make it about them. So first is needs. What do they need? And what is the root cause of that need? The root cause of the problem of that need. Establish all of that. And then once you establish that, how do you make an economic impact so that it pays for itself? That's the next step. So it's an acronym: needs, economic impact. And then once you establish that economic impact, what are the X factors that's going to block you solving those problems? Is it a board? Is it several stakeholders? Is it their buying process? Is it that they don't know enough? Ask them before you actually establish their timeline, and at the right time, make them the offer that's going to pay for itself. That's next level. Take it step by step. That's my methodology. That's my framework. To when you make an offer, it's just, when can we start? So now I want to use AI to actually implement that, to give a summary and feedback to the individuals. Did you follow? So within the system, you can follow that framework. You can put in spin selling. You can put in medic, and you can call an ambulance because you have headaches from following medic. It's very difficult to use, right? You can put in BANT, which to me is you show up and throw up and say, hey, you got any money? What are you talking about budget? This is 1970s and there's no other competition. Use ANTS, right? Just authority, need, timeline, and do they have a system? ANTS is way better than BANT. But you choose. You put it in the AI, and when they're on the calls, it extracts, did they do it? What can they improve on? What was the tonality? What is the feedback of how you do it versus the top 10%, right? And then based on that assessment, it sends you to the learning management system for the courseware that you need to do to get better. This is what I've found that I've done manually for years, coaching and endless thousands of hours to coach people up to get better, not just do more. How do you do it? And what would you do to enhance that? Because that system will be ready in a month. We're testing next week.
Great.
We're testing next week.
Yeah. That's cool, John. Yeah, what we do isn't that different. It's typically we have like cohorts of people that will do training and coaching. It's live. It's not driven by AI, though we do have an AI tool. But it's what we find works is based on Anders Ericsson's research around deliberate practice. People that perform the fastest, that build an expertise the fastest, are guided by somebody that's a step ahead of them. And they work on a very specific skill, sort of a micro skill that's part of a broader set of skills, business development. And you get immediate feedback on that over and over and over. Almost like you mentioned an NFL league here in the States. Before a game, you could see the coaches working with the player on exact skills, and they're doing a drill over and over again and getting feedback. Same thing with business development. So those kinds of skills are how to ask really great questions. How do you create curiosity about how you might be helpful to an organization? How do you co-create proposals so that in a way that makes sense to the client, that actually they want to roll their sleeves up and engage in perfecting it? We talked about that a little bit before. How do you overcome objections near the end and actually get something to all the way to approval? There's a million other things, including meeting the right new person, to keeping yourself on track, even when you're busy, all those kind of things. But those are all micro skills that all lead up into the whole that top performers have. So we use training to create a situation where everybody in a cohort can learn the right ways. And then we use coaching so that you get real-time one-on-one feedback to really fine-tune each of those micro skills that then add up into the whole skill.
So tell me, is that part of the Snowball effect and the Snowball system that you actually created? Let's take that to the next level, because you actually created a Snowball system. Go deep into that, because a lot of people always ask me, what is the key to success in sales? What is the key to success in business? And I said, throw away the keys, because in actuality, it's a combination. It's never getting it right. You don't go to the next level. So like an SDR, right? Their next level is just to get someone on an appointment. Step by step.
Yep.
The next level for you is just to get somebody on an appointment so a business development manager can go deep with discovery. right? And then after the business development manager brings in the business, then an account executive maintains that every year and nurtures that. Tell me about the Snowball system that you've created and what an impact it makes for organizations.
Oh man, big impacts. The corporate training, or we call it Grow Big. Our corporate name is big, so it's a playoff. Snowball System is a book, and the publishers really wanted basically we packaged up our entire world-class marquee training into a book. But when you sign a big publishing deal, the publisher gets to decide the name of the book. And they really loved Snowball System. So, John, you could almost think of like Snowball System is the entire methodology packaged up into one book. High encouraged for people to buy that. Give to Grow, our recent book, I would say, is a little more around mindset and with a sprinkling of moves, things like that. It also covers the barriers that we have in our own mind as business developers, salespeople that are getting our own way. That's new content, then it's Give to Grow. I'd probably say read Give to Grow first, and then I'd say read Snowball System second because it's deeper and more detailed. And between the two, you got all the mindsets, you got all the moves.
Yeah, so a $50,000 program you can pick up for less than $50.
Yeah, I don't want to devalue the full program, but it is all in both of the books. Start there.
No, but it's one thing to read about it. It's another thing to actually get in and get your hands dirty to implement something. And there's no greater AI is instrumental for large organizations, especially with what we're doing, to establish like a common question I'll ask is you want to increase sales. Your sales year on year have been declining. Have you established a system of best practices? Have you established a system of the top performance being duplicatable? No, these guys just do it. We don't know how they do it. Really? What if I could show you how they did and how you can duplicate it? Would that be powerful for you? What if I could show you how I can take somebody average or ordinary and make them extraordinary? The only way we can do that is not with AI. It's finding out from the humans what's the best practices, whether it's empathy, whether it's asking the right questions, whether it's making them the hero of their own story, even if it's procurement. This is my big lesson, man. Big lesson. I got there and I'm like,
so true.
Really? The deal's not done. The CEO checked the box. How could this not be done? Wasn't done. So I literally focus on the AI is just a co-pilot. That's all it is. There is no better training in the world than role playing with each other. And in the NFL, and I love the NFL, I grew up playing football. I was just too small. I was just too small. And I didn't grow until the 10th grade. Like I was 5 foot nothing and all of 80 pounds as going into the 10th grade, dude. I was getting slaughtered. They would wipe the floor with me. And I would put in all my effort and just get beat down and come home bruised and beaten every day. And I just wanted to be a part of the team. I was a boy amongst young men getting my ass kicked. But in saying that, those people, back to your statement, you see them working off the side. They practice for 45 hours a week and condition. So when they get in the game, it's all instinctual because they did the work. So role playing will never, ever be replaced. Even you role play with AI. AI cannot do math. You said specifically you got to put a number. I always say, if you want me to respect you as a professional, then you need to put a number of how much we increase sales, how much we reduce your cost, how much we're going to save you. And if we, on average, increase people's sales by 7.6% per quarter, what is your revenue times an additional 7.6%? And here's a calculator showing you. Let's do it together. Now, great, you've increased your revenue by 7.6% in a quarter. How much is that in a year? Well, it gets to compound. So how much is that? So you're going to earn an extra 10 million. Fantastic. But what is your profit margins? 18.6%. 18.6% of 10 million. Isn't that 18 million?
1.8. Yep.
1.8 million. Yeah. Our solution is going to be $121,000. And you're going to make an additional the 1.8 minus the $121,000, you're going to make close to 1.7 million. Do you see how our system pays for itself? That's a professional to me. But that was learned, and it becomes instinctual by role playing and training in the office before you go out and get in the game. Imagine we're not going to practice any of the plays before we go into the game, and we're going to be playing against high-level professional NFL players. But this week, guys, you know what? Take the week off.
Just wing it. You don't have to prepare for that meeting.
Yeah, and if you want to win it, you can't wing it, right? I say this to my team all the time. If you want to win it, you cannot wing it. So I fell in love when they gave me your profile and I started looking into your background. I just fell in love with give to receive. That is, to me, give to grow, give to receive, and the snowball effect. Are you open for business? Are you still in the game? How can people work with you? And or is it your team? How does it all work?
I would say, well, we as a company that believes in giving to grow, like literally writing a book with that title, let me share something that the audience can get for free, John. If people go to givetogrow.info, there's a whole free course on the book. And we made it so good that it can stand alone. Somebody doesn't even need the Give to Grow book to go through the free course. There's several dozen assets. There's videos from me. There's like how-to guides. There's checklists. Like, it's insanely valuable and it's totally free. So that's probably where I'd say to go. Givetogrow.info. And then folks will get automated stuff from me. People can reply to it. We read, it's not me that reads every email, but a human being on our team actually reads every email. So that's a way to get in touch with us too. Sign up for that course. And we'd help anybody any way we can. And that's a great way to get started. Yes. Everywhere. I think we've been, like you were mentioning, all those countries before, all those and more. We work with so many large corporate entities that, they hire us and we do like one cohort at a time. And it might be maybe it's an industry focus in their organization that we roll out. So it might have 3 people from this country and 5 from that one and 2 from this one, 3 from that. And we pull them together into one class. So just training folks all over the world, generally high-end experts that take years to understand a solution like what you've done with the sales machine. Like, it took years to build and know the whole industry around that and know how all the APIs work and things pull together and all.
I would have rather, I could have easily paid for a Harvard education 4 times. And that's not even a joke.
Yeah. But all that expertise you've got. Yeah.
Oh,
so,
man, I'm still a student of the game.
Me too.
I'll be a head coach.
I think you are now. I think you're a general manager. I think you're a level above the head coach.
Well, I love being in the game. So like literally when we get a deal or an opportunity, a deal and or closing sounds so, like it sounds so slimy. Like I closed that deal. Yeah. It's, really whenever we sign a new agreement, that's when the work begins for us. It's not making the sale. The work begins by us signing an agreement and then making sure that we solve their problem, making sure they get that economic impact. That's when the work begins. That's game time. Before that, it's just a formality, allowing them to understand what we can do for them.
Yeah, I like that. That's when the service really begins. Like it's in the BD process too, but it's really once you're hired.
Hey, I'm a student of the game. I'm going to go through your stuff. I'll send you some feedback and or questions of, how do I get better and implement it into our psychology and our methodology. Thank you so much for being on the show. This has been extremely powerful. Thank you for the gift for all of those listeners out there. No one does it better than Mo, and he's done it for 50,000 plus. Go find him, go get the course, do the work, and you'll share the success. Have a great day. Mo, thank you so much. That's a wrap, folks. Thanks for joining me today. And if you got value from this episode, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and refer a friend.
And if you want even more value, go to thesalesmachine.com, click on resources, and there's tons of resources there to increase profits and drive performance in your business. Right on, come on.